Is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Last week we went onto the computer, kind of went over the basics of virtual scouting, and we wound up picking a couple nice spots. So today what I'm going to do is head out, actually drive to those pins that I dropped on Onyx. Basically we're just going to confirm that my hunches are correct and that those are the areas that we're seeing some deer activity. So I brought a couple things along with me today. First and most important thing that you bring when you're going out scouting: water. You're gonna be doing a lot of walking, most likely, unless the spots you picked are just off the road. Number two, I got my phone. Because since I'm using Onyx, I have those pins marked. I'm going to need my phone to be able to get to those locations. Number three, got my binoculars. That way if we get in there and actually bump some deer, I'll be able to pull up quick on them, get an idea of what I'm looking at. Today's August 31st, so these deer might be at least starting to head into their fall pattern. We might be seeing some rubbing activity as bucks are trying to get the velvet off their antlers. So hopefully we'll be able to get in there, see some sign, figure out where these deer are moving, and then be able to pick specific trees that we might want to hunt out of come archery season. For those that don't know, Pennsylvania archery opener is September 30th this year. It's usually pretty early October, but I guess we get lucky this year and end of September. Now this episode is probably going to be a lot of walking and talking, but bear with me. We'll see what we can get into. Catch you in a bit. Alright, well, we have come up to the first access point for our lower two pins, and it's not looking good. Right off the main road there's a gate, so looks like we are going to have to do a little over a mile walk to get back to our first pin, but that'll be all right. I've brought my hunting pants, which I've treated with permethrin, so hopefully ticks won't be a factor. So we are going to head back towards this pin, flip around so the light's good. We're going to head back towards this pin and see what we can find. Catch you in a bit. Well, we are not quite to our first pin yet, but we did come across a little parking area. It's always nice to, when you reach an easy point of access like this, just kind of stop a minute, take a look around. While I was over there checking out the regulations board, I thought I heard a deer snort from across the trail here. So I decided I'd stop, take a minute, and just kind of peek around in the mud, look for any kind of tracks. Most of this trail is gravel, so it's not great for finding a whole lot of sign on the main road, even where they cross and whatnot. Looks like here we have a dog track, but what I did find, see if we can find it again. Here we go. We got some acorns. Now this one's old, very old. See if we can find any fresh ones. Right here it is. We got a green one dropping. So when it comes to early season spots, this might be a decent area to at least stop for a minute and check out. But we're going to continue to our waypoints. Up here I actually just marked another one. I found sort of a secondary ridge coming off before we get to that first ridge that I was planning on setting on. So I figure, at the very least, if if we don't get all the way up in there. It's sort of like a, not really a secondary ridge, it's more of a drainage. But figure at the very least, it'll be worth checking the mud around the base of the hill, get an idea what kind of traffic is moving through that area, if it might be worth checking out. All right, so we are coming up on the pin I just marked from the parking lot. Unfortunately, that drainage is over there across the creek, so we are going to have to find somewhere to get across without getting my feet soaking wet, while also keeping our eyes open for any kind of sign. This could be the best hunting spot on the planet. If you can't get to it, it doesn't do you any good. Fortunately for us, well, for me, it appears we can cross right here without getting too wet. Right up here, we have a nice little flat bench that I can probably expect some deer to be bedding on in the case of a southerly wind. That'll be a wind coming from the south, which is right up over the top of that hill. And basically what that does is anything that's along the top is going to be winded by these deer. Meanwhile, they can sit up on that side hill and watch this whole bottom for any danger that might be approaching from underneath. And that's going to make access a little bit difficult. But there is a bridge back there that crosses this stream. So for on a hunting day, if I was trying to access this spot, I probably would park somewhere up above that bridge and just side hill it on in. Maybe make my way right along the very edge of this bottom. I'd expect it to be a pretty good spot in the morning, because that'll be when the thermals are going to be strongest. And seeing that this is a north-facing slope, if it has a southerly wind, it might pull that scent up from the bottom as well. Right now it's 10:30, and I can almost feel the thermal, from the stream pushing down this way, but also I can feel wind coming in from the north, pushing my scent up that way. So right now I expect those deer to be bedded over on that hillside. If they are bedded, if not, they're probably up on their feet browsing around by now. So they're probably either going to be in this bottom, browsing along the side hill, or still in their beds up towards the top end of that hill, opposite hillside. And as this slope starts to warm up, we'll be able to feel that thermal pulling uphill. But right now, my wind's kind of pushing into the area that I'm about to walk into, so I'm not expecting to see anything, but I should at least be able to see generally where they're at or where they've been moving. Alright, well, we made it across. I am currently standing on pretty solid deer trail. Try and cut the glare off there. You can see where it's wore out right through here. So what I think I might do is just kind of follow this. It looks like that drainage is actually right up that way. So I'm going to follow this trail, see if it cuts up into the drainage, or if it's a meeting point for other trails. Yeah, I'm going to follow this trail, see where it leads. As you can see, this is completely dug out. Very easy trail to follow. So I'll do that. I'll pick you back up when I come across something interesting. Alright, well, as you can see right here, following that trail, just led me to a little fawn bed. And as I'm standing here, I can feel exactly why that deer chose to bed right here. Because that thermal right now is pushing down the hill. That cool air up top, bringing all that scent right down the hill. And that deer can lay right here and watch this whole bottom. Anyway, we're gonna keep on pushing, see what else we can run into. Just following that trail, we got some fresh deer crap. So we are confirming this is the place to be. All right, feeling good about my ability to drop pins now. Now, unfortunately, what I'm not finding in this spot is any sort of buck sign, whether fresh or historical. I don't see any old rubs. I don't see any scrapes, anything of that nature. So I'm going to keep following this trail. Looks like there's a little shoot off here. Kind of leads up into this drainage. So I'm going to keep looking around here for a little bit, and then we'll move on to our next pin. We got some old deer crap on the trail. I'm falling over. But again, not seeing any sign of bucks, fresh or historical. No rubs, no old rubs, just blowdowns, beds, crap, and trails. Well, it doesn't help with the deer scouting, but check this out. Looks like an old turkey egg. Heck yeah. That's pretty neat. Alright, well, we have successfully backtracked to the trail. Short synopsis of this first pin. We found some trails. There's a good sign of some deer movement. Got a turkey egg. We found an access point, just like I thought, before the bridge. You can cut up the hill a little bit and you can follow along that entire bench. Nice and easy walking. It would be a decent spot to set up if you can get in there early morning. Probably won't see anything right off the bat because they're going to be bedded high. But as those deer start moving, coming down, seems like a lot of the acorns and browse are down along the bottom. There's a few blowdowns, things for them to browse on down along this bench. So if you can get in there in the morning, get set up before those thermals start pulling down the hill, you're looking at a relatively huntable spot. Unfortunately, with no sign of buck activity, either past or present, I think I'm going to pass on this one. So we're moving on to the next pin, see what we can get into. Well, as you can see, right here is the trail. I was just working my way over towards that next pin, happened to glance into the woods, and check it out. We got ourselves a fresh rub. If you look at bark still on top of the leaves, I'm not sure how well it shows up, but that's a pretty fresh rub. So we found some buck activity. Right here looks like a trail. So I might follow it for a minute. See if I can get into any more sign. Well, no further sign, but that trail led us directly to an old fire pit. And that's pretty neat. Well, I've actually crossed the trail now to the steep side. And I found this absolute doozy of a trail. And it's starting to make a lot of sense. So those deer, the trail's right on the other side of this little bump here. So those deer, if they're bedding up on this hillside behind me, those deer can move right along through here and not be seen by anybody traveling the road. And they're not going to catch anything from this side. So I'm wondering if the wind is reversed directions, instead of having a wind from the south, if we have wind from the north, they might be bedding in and around this little drainage and bench here, and they can move to all of their resources without too much exposure. So I'm going to keep moseying around in here, see if I can find any interesting sign. This side of the trail is looking a lot more promising. Now stay with me here. I know this is old. Well, that's a scrape with a nice grapevine hanging down. And look at this travel way. With the right wind, this could be a really good spot to set up. That rub was right across the trail. Now granted, still early in the season yet, so there's not going to be a whole ton of buck sign. They're probably just starting to rub the velvet off their antlers. But we have confirmation of a buck in the area. And a pretty heavily traveled trail. And a pretty secluded location. You can see this trail almost looks like a freaking paved hiking trail. Cut right through the woods, right off that hill, right across from that hill. Right here's some fresh crap. Oh my God, there's a pile. Absolute ton of deer crap through here. I mean, it's all over the leaves. So this is definitely a very heavily traveled trail. It might be worth a check here come archery season. I can get in almost any one of these trees in my saddle. But we are going to need the right wind to hunt it. Holy crap, this trail is ridiculous. That almost seemed like a convergence. There's a trail here, trail crossing the stream. I don't see any coming down from that hillside, but if there's that many deer walking along through here only, I'll be pretty surprised. So I'm going to keep following this. Huh. We have an old logging road. Well, the deer couldn't ask for much better travel route than that. Yeah, pretty heavily used. This is the most deer activity sign that I've seen in here so far. We got more pens to check out, so let's go do that. We got some beds. Right where that thermal's blowing the scent down to them, and they can watch all the way across that hillside. Shaping up to be a pretty decent area. I'm definitely going to mark this location to come back later. I feel like if I was going to hunt in here, this is the area I'd be doing it. Alright, so we've circled back around to the old scrape here. And I'm just kind of taking a minute to look around. So we have the main trail coming through behind me, well worn. The trail going out ahead, also well worn. We got another trail coming off this way, and another one coming in from across the hill, across this old creek here, coming up here to meet it. And we have one going out, or coming in, either way, depending on which way the deer are heading, straight up this hillside. So, with this scrape being at the convergence of this many trails, that would lead me to believe this is going to be a communal scrape. And basically a communal scrape is just used by bucks and does. Sort of like a meeting point, so these deer can kind of communicate who's been in through the area. Bucks can check for hot does, does can leave their sign for the bucks, and it's basically just used by everybody. So, with this heavy use of trails, the sheer amount of crap that I've found on the trail, and the presence of a scrape being here, if we can get the right wind for this spot, I'll be setting up somewhere in here come archery season. So, that's one spot picked. And that brings me to my next point. When you're scouting an area, especially if you've never been there before, do not lock yourself in to only going to where your pins are set. If you find a good trail, or if you find a rub, follow it. Let the deer tell you where they want to be and how to hunt them. The purpose of a scouting day is to get out and explore. Now, if you're pressed for time, it's understandable that you just go to your pins. But at the very least, mark any sign that you do find. Even if it's just a mental check, mark off any sign that you do find and investigate it later. So, we're going to move off to our next pin and keep our eyes open along the way. Okay, well, we found a little creek crossing here off the bat. We're on a couple trails. So let's follow this one up right through the base of this ridge here, right up into the drainage. See what for sign we can come across, if any. Well, right along the main trail, we have a little bit of browsing activity on these nettles. Well, I'm gonna try and keep myself out of those nettles. We have deer moving through the area. That's confirmed. Let's keep an eye out. Okay, found our first sign. Some fresh, some old. And there is just a ton of deer crap. So right here seems like another convergence point as far as trails go. So we got one there, one coming through here, up through here, down through there. This could be another decent spot to set up around. Not a whole lot in the way of trees to hang a saddle out of though. Especially with the thermals rolling downhill. We have to set up somewhere down in here. Potentially get a shot at anything moving through this way. So we'll keep cruising around a little bit and look if there's any more sign. It's really bugging me that there's not a whole lot of historic sign with old rubs and things like that. But there's a ton of crap, so there's deer here. And if seeing deer's your goal, this would be a good area to set up. So this could be a good spot even for some doe patrol. All right, I'm gonna put the camera away. Keep my eyes peeled for any kind of sign. Well, I've been at it again, just following trails. And it led me up to this old apple tree. You can see up there, still got some apples hanging on it. And right down below it, we got a bed. Once again, right at the base of the hill. Any thermal activity will pull scent right down the hill from anything up above. We got the bed, and you can watch this whole bottom area for any signs of threat. Not seeing any hair. This is about as clear of a deer bed as you can get. There's more right over here. So, best guess, we got a family group of does in here. Maybe a bachelor group of bucks. But we got feed not far from the bed. More browse than he could even possibly imagine eating. Pretty thick in here. We got thermal advantage. This is a good spot for a deer to lay. So I'm going to mark this on the map. And we'll head back to our other pins. Alright, we've made it back to the main trail. Heading off to our next pin. And I didn't pass one, but if I had to guess, I'd say there's another gate between here and where I went in at. Because it's quite obviously a lot less traveled. So it looks like we'd be on foot from here on out, regardless if I can bring the truck back here during season or not. Whew. And it's been a heck of a hike. So I'm going to start packing my way back towards our final pin. We'll see what we can see. Well, we've just split from the main trail, heading back to our very last pin here. And this is what we got to follow. It's already looking pretty promising. Let's get in here and see what's good. Well, right on the main trail, we have some old rubs. Another one right there. Thought I saw a fresh one, but it was just the light shining off the tree. So at least we have old sign. So at some point, according to OnX, this opens up into a big old clear cut. I'm not seeing it. So I'm gonna keep following the deer trail down through here. We'll see what we come across. More sign of ancient buck activity. So far, nothing fresh. It is still early season, but oh, looks like right here is the clearing. Oh, here we go. Now we're talking. That looks like last year. So, we've got some activity. Tracks in the mud. Okay. So this is a very overgrown old clearing. Not really very helpful
immediately. With all that goldenrod in the field, might wind up being a decent late season area. This could be a fairly high traveled area for deer as well come season. We just have to come in and find the fresh sign and hunt over it. I'm not really seeing any overpowering draw to the area, other than this is the only place we found on this game land with any sign of historic buck activity. We've got a good bit of driving to do to get to our other pins, so I'm going to go ahead and back out of this area, leave it for later inspection. All right, got you back at the truck.
Whew, all right, we made it back to the truck and we have a ton of new and useful information. So we got 2 new exact hunting spots, 1 more general area that we know might be good, and we only had to walk, let me check my step counter. We only had to walk 5.77 miles to get that information. So I think what we're going to do is leave those other 2 pins on this game land for later in the season, and we'll just work with these 3 areas in here. Hopefully that gate's open so I don't have to walk another 6 miles to get back to them, or drag a deer 6 miles. But we'll figure that out as we go. Either way, I got to get back to the house and get this episode out. I'm busy tonight, and tomorrow I leave for Potter County. So next week, I'll probably be putting out a fly fishing video. After that comes doves and archery. So, that's going to do it for today's episode. Make sure you like the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you in the next one.